Perfect. So, hello everyone and welcome. I'm so excited to have Dr. Prajakta and Dr. Preety with us today for a very special conversation. And, Dr. Prajakta and Preety are brilliant minds behind Karwa. It's a retreat dedicated to holistic healing and inner journeys. So, now if you've been following my content, you know I love showcasing those practitioners who go beyond the traditional path of homeopathy and create something truly unique. And, Karwa, I felt was something that was exactly the kind of this venture bringing together practitioners and patients in sort of an immersive healing experience that integrates a wide range of modalities. So today we're going to deep dive into the inspiration behind Karwa, the philosophy that drives their work, their personal journeys that brought them here. And I've got both Dr. Prajakta, Dr. Preeti here, and while they work closely together, I, I believe they each bring their own special touch to the retreat. So we'll get to hear from both of them. Let's jump in. So welcome, Dr. Prajakta. Welcome, Dr. Preeti. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Shilpa, for this warm introduction. We're very happy to be here.
Perfect. So let's start. For people who don't know you, tell us a bit about yourself, your journey as a practitioner. You can start with Dr. Preeti here. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start maybe. So, as Dr. Shilpa already mentioned, Prajakta and I practice together.
Okay.
I keep hearing it's a little bit unusual for two folks to do that. But for us, it happened very organically. We studied together,
Same class.
and I'm sorry.
Same class.
Same class, we studied together. There was a little difference. Prajakta used to sit on the first bench. I was the last bencher. But
Okay.
eventually, things are meant to be. I had to woo her a lot, but in the end, she agreed. She said yes. So yeah, I mean, we started our practice sometime in 2008, and we practice out of Mumbai. And we started as a so especially in India, no, it's a very common practice for new beginners to start. They rent a polyclinic, so that there's a clinic whole day. There are different specialties of doctors coming, and you could afford just 1 hour of practice. You could pay the rent for that, and so we started, of course, that way. And we started just as homeopaths, and with time over the years, I can say it with a lot of satisfaction, content, a little bit of pride that we are no longer just homeopaths. We are healers. We are uh, we help individuals and families and people uh, look inwards, and not towards their physical health or mental health, but also their spiritual health. So it's been quite a phenomenal journey. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I don't know if Prajakta, you wanted to add something.
Prajakta, your perspective.
So, as Preeti was mentioning, I was the first bencher, and maybe my perspective about, studying was a different, but I think we were meant to happen, and we studied together, and that was a wonderful time, studying together, and I was not very, very open to talk about it, or I was not very I was from vernacular medium, so I was very conscious about talking, giving exams, and vivas, oral exams, and that was like a challenging for me. And I think being with her, we helped each other to study together, come out of our comfort zone, and a long way. And then we thought that we'll start our practice together, and now it's almost 15 years that we have together, and this journey was really wonderful. We studied as a student, started with sensation method, learned from many of our teachers and masters, and our patients also a lot, and seeing them healing with homeopathy, with different healing modalities, I think it gives a lot of satisfaction, and it's kind of, a passion now, as a homeopath or a healer for both of us.
Wonderful. So, tell me about, there are so many practitioners we know, thousands and thousands of practitioners who start on, become homeopaths, and, practice lifelong, right? But you two decided to go beyond and create this retreat called Karma. What inspired you, to create that? How did that idea come to you in the first place?
Maybe I can start and
Okay.
Prajakta can, give her thoughts and point of view. So I think we started off as a simple homeopathy practice, and while the journey was a little uphill, little difficult, we had our share of failures, but I think we were doing a pretty good job. And we would have patients who would come back and say that homeopathy was helping them and how they were getting better, etc., which was wonderful, which was great to hear. Uh, but there were also some patients where we would realize that there are some blocks to healing. Yeah. So, some blocks to healing could be some lifestyle changes that we want them to integrate, a better diet, they need to move a little bit more, etc. So we started spending a lot of time along with, not just consultation, but also kind of educating our patients with a lot of other healthy lifestyle changes that we would like them to integrate. Now, my personal addition to this whole story was I was introduced to meditation very early in my life. Like when I was a little child. One of the favorite pastimes that my mother and I used to have would we would listen to discourses, or she would read me books of different spiritual masters, and I grew up like that. So meditation was a part of how it wasn't an exercise for me to, something to do. It was not a chore. It was a part of how I was built. So
Gotcha.
it was very natural for me to, start advising also our patients a little bit of meditation techniques. As we grew our practice, we also started conducting sort of 1 hour workshops for our patients. Wherever little time on a Sunday or a weekend, we would just, gather some group of patients and we would do these kind of little small workshops. Few years fast forward, we were able to build a holistic center. So we were able to integrate yoga, meditation, Zen counseling, mindful eating, all of that within under the same roof. So which was great. What then happened was that to do this, for 1 hour, 2 hour, educating the patient somehow wasn't enough. Because we live in Mumbai, and I'm sure you live in, I don't know how urban are you, Shilpa, but the pressures of the urban living, and we have so many commitments, and even to reach the clinic, for a 1 hour meditation, it's a struggle. No, you have to go through the traffic and the pollution, and haggle with the auto rickshaw guy, and it is so much, for mothers, for example, or for people who are students. They have different pressures. So there is so much going on. So the environment is not as conducive to what we are trying to achieve. So we realize that nature, connecting to nature, disconnecting with your, rat race and all that's going on in our lives is very, very important. To take that pause, to say that what, I need some time for myself. I want to disconnect. I want to recharge, rejuvenate. And we realize that that can happen in a fully immersive self journey, where you are close to the nature. You can walk barefoot, you can hug a tree, you can just watch a sunrise or watch a sunset, and you're also in a group of people. Because when you are in this inner healing journey, while it may be something that you have to do yourself, it's your journey. But when you have fellow seekers with you, people on similar journeys, that group energy, that itself is so powerful and it's so irreplaceable. So it it didn't come overnight. It was not an overnight thing. It just organically, one after the other, it just kind of keep changing its shape and structure and form, eventually to become a 3-day retreat, which we take, our homeopathic students, other homeopaths, colleagues, our patients, dear patients. So, we go out, disconnect with everything we have, the computer and the social media, and everything, just disconnect and commit to self healing, and which this is how very gradually Karwa evolved and became what it is right now.
Got you.
Prajakta, your 2 cents.
Yes,
Yeah, so for me, it was, of course, with our practice and with homeopathy, the results and the healing that was happening, which was phenomenal. But we saw, as Preeti said, there were recurrences or there were some blocks for healing at a deeper level. And for me, as a perspectively from the childhood, I was a yoga lover, and it used to fascinate me a lot, and I always wanted to learn, and I always wanted to see how that helped my patient. So I myself did a yoga teacher training course for 200 hours. I kind of removed 1 month of my busy practice, and then I learned myself, and I saw how it is effective along with your medicines that you are taking, how yoga can help to bring your this body and mind together. So, and that to share this knowledge with your patients or with whoever come across, I thought that is something I must do. And from childhood I've also struggled with lot with my weight. So food and mind and my body kind of kind of troubled me a lot. So over a period of time I did a lot of things to lose weight, and lot of weight loss programs and dieting and crash diet and whatnot I do. But later on what I realized was it's not that something what you're doing is important. First is what how you accept yourself and how you deal with your with your sight, because your food is also related to your mind. And that I realized later, and how you can become mindful when you are eating and not just excluding things from your diet. And many of our patients, they deal with it, many females with hormonal complaints, and teenagers with their looks and how they feel inside. So I thought it became a part of our regular practice that we are talking to them about this yoga, mindful eating, and like this meditation. So this is how we saw that how all these things are helping our patients to bring that healing at a deeper level. And as Preeti said, so we tried making it in a place where everything is disconnected and you are just with yourself, and all these program or these healing techniques help you, and you become recharged or rejuvenated at the end of the 3 days. And that is how it emerged. And seeing the participants getting these results and feeling, it kept us moving and doing it again and again.
wow, that was amazing. Just to see how you two bring two different perspectives into it, and it's all aligned in that sense. So, when you are on that journey in that retreat for 3 days, how do you integrate all these modalities? What exactly happens at that 3-day workshop?
So the core philosophy of homeopathy that we do, or the healing modalities that we use at Karwa, is awareness.
Okay.
Is to become aware of, not just how you're feeling, but what your sensations are, what your patterns are, what are the repetitive patterns that has governed you through your life, has shaped who you are, has decided your journeys and things like that. What you are eating, how aware you are while eating, or are you listening to your body when it's saying that I'm full, but you keep on having like those 2 3 morsels, etc. So the core philosophy is awareness. So everything is designed around this core principle. Now, Karwaan, literally means journey. Yeah, it's not a destination. It's not like, okay, you come for 3 days and yes, I'm a new person. It's not that. It's a journey. It's a journey towards your better self, towards your evolved self, to become more aware. So the how it's designed, the whole philosophy is around the journey. To say that while I am saying this, I'm not a preacher, I'm not on some other pedestal, I am a fellow seeker. I have the same struggles. So, it's very casual, it's very colorful, it's very integrative. There is, people can be themselves. They can, one in our first introduction session, what we say is, just leave your shoes, leave your responsibilities, leave all your mask, leave your personality. We even ask them to leave their names and, take up any name they would like us to call, for those 3 days. So just leave, unburden yourself and then start on this journey. So generally these 3 days, why 3 days? Because it's easier for people to commit, Shilpa, it's very, very difficult for people to say that, okay, I'm going to spend these, I'm going to invest 3 days or 5 days or 10 days just to myself. I'm going to leave my spouse. I'm going to leave my responsibilities. I'm going to leave my work and just invest in myself. It's very, very difficult. So weekend, a little one more day or a long weekend is enough. It's not too much to ask. So that's why 3 days. And the whole program is, we have healthy, organic as far as possible, but whole plant-based food. We used to also include sattvic food. So we used to avoid food which is, very heaty in nature, which has a lot of heat. So that's one thing. So the meals are very, healthy. The portions are, conducive to your body feeling, light, and, for your body to kind of detox and heal. Our days start with yoga. Prajakta, leads the yoga for us. So we start with yoga. Then we have different meditative processes. So we start with a lot of cathartic processes. So we could use movement exercises. We would use emotional detox. So we would detox not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, everything. We try to unload the baggage. And once a fair bit of detox has happened, then we would sit silently, we would walk silently, we would go on these Zen walks where, we would walk in nature, all of us together, but fully aware of what's happening, not indulge in our mental chatter. We would do a lot of chakra healing exercise, or we would do something called as connecting with 5 elements of nature. We would do a lot of breathing technique, use different breath work techniques to healing. So yeah, we would dance, we would sing, we would, kind of use any technique which would not just help us go inside, but also connect us with nature and existence. And this boundary between you and me, that this is me and this is you. Try and also dilute those boundaries and become one, become part of nature, become part of existence. So a lot of different healing modalities, both ancient and time tested, both contemporary. We have learned ourselves a lot of these techniques through different teachers, different schools of thoughts, practiced, and what we found effective on ourselves, we kind of started sharing that with people. So I think, uh, and again, just one more thing I wanted to add is that no 3 day Karwa is exactly, it's not like, one formula and just repeat. So it's not like a protocol. So it also kind of is very fluid. So each retreat could be, having a little bit different energy flow, depending on how the group is, what is the requirement in the group at that point of time. So, yeah, I mean, music, dance, nature, stars, trees, Zen walks, breathing, yoga, all of it is kind of part of, part of the journey of these 3 days retreat.
Wow, sounds amazing. So, Prajakta,
Yeah.
what is it
So
about
the
this retreat for you?
yeah, so this the entire program has some, of course, the intention behind is awareness. But as a homeopath, right? Everybody is very subjective, gets a subjective experience, right? So all our also intention of doing all these activities in a same retreat is also because every individual can experience these activities at different level. Okay, so one person can have very good experience with music, one person can have very good experience with yoga, maybe nature walks or some cathartic activities. So our idea is, after this, like how we, of course, in these 3 days you feel much better and relaxed, and you're rejuvenated, but what is your take back at home, right? So whatever you like, whatever has given you the best of experience in this whole 3 days, how you can take back that at home and then practice it, because it's a journey, it's not just the 3 days is the experience. So that also gets into your awareness that, okay, this is something helping me and this I can continue. So at the end of the retreat, we also have a session where have a kind of a reflection that what has really helped you, and then how you can take that back and practice that at home, so that the intention of this awareness can be become a part of your life and not just these 3 days.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so we also try to see how it is maintained in their regular routine life when they are back into their busy schedule. So that's also something important that we follow.
Got you. So, when people go through this and that you've been doing it regularly, what kind of transformations have you witnessed in your patients? Both practitioners and patients, what has the change been that you've seen in your
Yeah.
clinics?
So each retreat, we must have done about uh, a little over 15 retreats by now. And we have roughly 15 to 20 individuals in each retreat. Now, each retreat, the energy of the retreat and the transformation has been so unique and different. And a lot of times, this transformation can be as immediate as just coming and just switching off their phones and disconnecting with the internet and just being in nature. Just coming there could just immediately bring about some change. And as Prajakta said, we kind of expose them to different types of healing modalities. And for each one to its own, right? Different things affect different individuals at a different level, at a different, a different kind of healing can happen. And sometimes it cannot affect you at all. You could you can be completely indifferent and say, I don't know what was the point of it. So that's fair as well. So a lot of processes you can say that can affect different people in a different way, where the transformation can happen in that moment during that process itself. People can deep-seated grief, or some relationship with somebody which had gone sour or bitter, that can heal. Their perspective with which they were perceiving their situation in life, that can change. We've seen chronic hypertensive patients or chronic, diabetic patients with high, blood sugars not kind of budging at all. Their levels also change. Their happiness quotient changes, but how they feel within their own skin, that changes. And that transformation, when they feel that I am okay with who I am, with what I am, I'm okay with what existence has given me, the challenges it has given me. My journey is okay. This is my journey, and I'm going to learn my lesson, and I'm going to evolve from here. That acceptance itself is the biggest breakthrough. So the transformation is immediate. The transformation is both mentally, physically, in their health parameters as well. And a lot of them, kind of, we also follow up with them. We kind of have created a sort of a buddy program where, people can also support each other even post retreat. So we do follow up with them to kind of see, has that, effect not just kind of fizzled away, but is it kind of bringing some change, and are they able to carry, that change with them? It's like a seed, a seed and a pebble, exactly the same, no difference, but seed has a lot of potential. So, in the 3 days, we give them good soil, proper sunlight, all the nutritious, water and everything, then they are ready. And then different seeds, blossom into different, I mean, the results are phenomenal, and they are consistent, and they are sustainable. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Prajakta, what sort of, transformations have you seen?
Yeah, so I remember one, she was, I think, our friend's friend who had come, and the main reason for coming to our retreat was she had some very intense emotional breakdown or some disappointment in the past, and she was carrying it for a long time, and that was something that she needed the help for. And somehow intuitively she thought that I'll just come here and be here and see if there is anything that this can help me. And as a person, as a as an individual, she was very resistant, strong, and sometimes you want to stay away from your own emotions because you've gone through a lot in the past. And I think that was her initial way of dealing with it. But over a period of time, eventually, with all these processes and these healing, cathartic, basically, technique, really, really helped her. And what she, explained her at the end of it, that, I've last night, before, like the second last day of the, she wrote something on the paper, and she could kind of, tone it, kind of burned it out, and it's kind of helped her to release her emotions and let go of what she was feeling and about those feelings in the past about that person or that situation. And she was feeling very relaxed and very open. So I think that kind of a situation has really helped her to, move from one step where they are actually stuck, and then they can go beyond to, help themselves or to do their best of they are. So I think it's a step where you can, you know kind of go beyond your own limitations and expand your own horizon to see what's best for you out there. So that was something which I remembered, and it was very healing and very content to see this.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yes.
It's not the transformation and healing of the participants who come to Karwaan. It's also my healing and Prajakta's healing and our transformation. Because when somebody heals, when somebody shares, when somebody transforms, something within you moves.
Right.
I remember I had this, I was going through some, you know, uh, at that time, Dr. Paresh used to treat me, Dr. Paresh Vasani, he was my homeopath. And I remember I was not feeling well, and my state was very intense, and I was like, I have to go for Karwaan. I don't think I am capable enough. Like, I should be even, going as a facilitator. What do I have? What do I have to give? Uh, but you give what you have, whatever it is, whatever little it is, and that sharing heals you. So I think I will have to admit that it's not just healing and transformation of the participants, but it's our own healing. Something within us shifts each time. We become more aware, we become more true, we reconnect with ourselves. And I think that's one very big motive very big, something that attracts us and motivates us, because it's not easy, to leave your practice, to leave everything, and it's very time and energy consuming. But I think this our own journeys are, and I think we need to thank these participants because they help us more than what we can do with them.
Wow, that's, it's like you provide that sort of a nurturing, safe, unprejudiced sort of environment with, where they feel secure and they feel loved and they feel okay to let go. And it's all about removing those obstacles to healing. And as they heal, you heal, and it's such a collaborative, mutually growing experience for both of you. That's amazing. So how, and that was my question actually. How do you motivate yourself to continue to do this and have these retreats on a regular basis? So tell me about, when you have so many different skills and talents, and two people from two completely different environments and backgrounds, and they come together. Share those dynamics. What is it that you two bring on for these people, for your clients, onto this retreat?
I think this is a very, it's a brilliant question, and it's very personal in some sense. Because between Prajakta and I mean, we were friends first, and we call ourselves soul sisters, because there's something between us where, while we're completely different individuals, we have our own skill sets, we bring different things to the table. I think there is friendship and love and selflessness between the two of us. So, while we are business partners and we do so many ventures together, etc., I think our energies meet at a different plane. And that itself is very pure. It's very sacred what we have. And I think that helps because, for example, if I'm interviewing somebody in the clinic, any staff like admin or any doctors, one of the main things we say is that this is a sacred space. So, if you don't have a skill, we can teach you, we can train you. But who you are and what your intentions are, you can't train that, right? You can't train somebody what their intentions of doing any particular work is. So our intentions are very similar. We look in the similar direction. We may want to tackle a same problem in a different way, but our direction is very similar. Our goals in life are very similar. So that helps. But other than that, I think I bring about a little bit of adventure. I bring about, my natural knack of listening and, allowing people to be themselves a little bit. I use a lot of meditation, even in my case taking as a homeopath. I would just often, my patients can start meditating in my cabin, so it's not a skill, it's just something that comes to me naturally. So I bring that on the table. But Prajakta brings poise, and she brings humbleness, and she brings yoga, and we call her the laughing Buddha. She can just laugh herself out, like a little child, and she could just. So she brings completely different flavors. So, we kind of make a nice, wholesome dish. We have different flavors, but I think it all kind of comes together very well. So that's what I think. I don't know, Prajakta. What do you think?
Yeah. So, as of course, what Preeti says is absolutely true, and we've been together, and I think our chemistry or our togetherness helped this retreat a lot, because we kind of, even if we are a different people, when we are together, we are one as a whole. So I think that really helped our retreat, and our intention is very pure, and it's same, that to bring this awareness, to bring this healing, and at the end is bring those fragments of these people at a body mind level together. So I think that intention, the basic intention is same. So and that gets manifested in our retreat.
That's amazing because you see two people come together and work together, and it could be like for years and years they would do that, but it's a special bond that you share, and it's palpable, and that's what I'm saying. I've never seen two individual homeopaths coming together and being able to bring their own energy in their webinars, in their work, and now in your retreat. So, moving forward with Karwa, has it manifested the way you wanted it to be today? Is there something you are looking for? What is it that you envision Karwa to be, say, 5 years down the track or 10 years down the track? What were you looking at from this point of view?
So I think, are we, have we completely manifested what our vision was? I think the honest answer would be no. And no is because of a lot of practical things. As I said, with teaching, with homeopathy, with practice, our hands are already too full. So to remove time and to motivate participants. See, once participants are there, they are full on. But to bring participants, to convince them that this is important for you, is not an, unfortunately, it's not an easy calling for people, so it requires a lot of resources, it requires a lot of time, energy, staff. So unfortunately, that's not currently where we are. So at the moment, we are at one retreat a year. We would definitely want to do it at least once a quarter. But where do I see, what is the final vision of what Karwa could possibly be? And I think it's very clear, and I can answer for both Prajakta and myself, is that, we imagine ourselves to be, practicing out of a retreat, so it doesn't have to be something separate. So, we envision ourselves to be close to nature, on a hill or near the sea or whatever, and build a space which is a residential space where we could do homeopathy, where we could amalgamate all these different techniques and conduct these residential programs. So I hope, I wish that we retire on a farm someday, bringing all these healing energies together and not limit ourselves with just medicine or, holistic medicine. Maybe homeopathy is better than, whatever, but not restrict ourselves, just use all the healing opportunities and modalities, and we create a loving, safe space where people can come and share their share what they have to share with the world. And we hope we are able to build that space someday. And I say that if you really want something very hard and really, want it, it comes true. So I'm hoping this dream will be realized someday too.
Very much. Prajakta, you want to add on? I mean, that's an amazing dream. Anything that you want to say?
Yeah, no, I think Preeti has said everything, but I think we really wish that to happen from all of our heart, and I think existence will help us, and existence will help us to bring this into a real manifestation. And I'm very sure of that, with whatever difficulties and challenges we have today. But I'm very positive that it will bring something good to us.
Wonderful. So that's where you look at, and that's where we hope to see you too, because that would be, you would be in your zone, in your element where you could be in that space and people will come to you, and, that's mind, body, and soul. So thank you so much for sharing. And so if people want to get in touch with you or, visit your retreat, where can they contact you? How can they reach you?
Yeah. So the best place is to go to our website, www.healingharmony.in. And all the information, any upcoming retreats, all the activities we do, that's like the one place where all the information is updated in real time. Uh, but at this point, I also wanted to, share a little story, if I may, about, while we think healing is a goal, or having this residential farm retreat is my goal, it's all in the future. Yeah, but healing and awareness is in this moment. Life is in this moment, right? So I heard this very beautiful story I read it in his book actually by Moji, and it's a story about a little wave. Okay. So just imagine there's a huge ocean, and there are these so many different kinds of waves. Some is huge, some is small, some is very tiny. So there's this little wave, and she asks her friend who's just waving around next to her. She asks her, you know what? I want to meet the ocean. Where can I find the ocean? And he said, I don't know where the ocean is. Maybe we can ask this, one old wave I know. Maybe she has the answer. So the two of them, go to this third wave, who's a little, experienced wave, has seen more grays and more sunsets in her life. And they ask, where is the ocean? Do you know? He said, no, I don't know where is ocean. I don't know what ocean. I really don't know. But I know this very old wise man, probably this old wise wave will know the answer. So all three of them go to this old wise wave, and he says, oh, little one, what's your question? And he said, I want to meet the ocean. I've heard so much. I know it's a very beautiful thing, and it's very peaceful, and it's very blue, and it's very calm. I want to meet. I'm like, oh, I'm so desperate. He's like, okay, are you serious? You really want to meet? Okay, just take a deep dive inside. And the little one goes down and says, oh, I am the ocean. So, it's all here, and it's
It's
all
all
our
within us.
mind, and it's all our, seeking is also a mind thing, right? We want to seek, and we want to, but it's all here. So while we wish and desire and have these goals, I think it's also important to remind ourselves that it's, if we want, it's all here. This healing, this journey is just our ways, um, but it's all here.
The ocean is within us, and while we look forward to have those manifestations happening, the Karwa is what it is all about, right? It's the journey rather than the destination, but both are equally important. So thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for sharing your journey, and thank you for inspiring. It is about inspiring the homeopathic community as a whole to not just look at one dimensional thing about their practices, but to manifest themselves in so many different ways, and look and outside the box and create what is the true you in a way, like you've done with your way of Karwa. So thank you for the inspiration as well. And yeah, it has really been a pleasure having you both here.
Thank you so much, Shilpa. Thank you for your patient listening. And I just also have to add that you are an inspiration to so many of us, Shilpa, with what you have done and where you've taken the homeopathy community and the quality of, education that you've brought to the world. I think thank you so much for everything that you're doing. It's phenomenal.
Been a pleasure, and we'll continue to manifest in our ways, but that's how it is. Together we'll all grow as a community. So
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you.